Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I am Clementine, and as always, I am Super Saiyan. But never mind that. In this video, we're gonna do a fret level and recrown on this guitar neck made from a 1940s oak farm table. And then I'll show you how to take a 50-cent tool that is not made for guitars and use it to achieve this mirror-like shine when we polish frets like a girl. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, stay tuned.
Rodar esa hermosa matralla de frijoles.
Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is take off this roller nut and the shim under it. And this is probably a good time to say that I don't have one of those straight edges with the little notches in it. I look down the side of the guitar, make sure it's straight. If it does have a little bit of a bow in it or a little bit of a twist in it, it's gonna be flat after this. Now we're gonna take a roll of masking tape and start taping up the fretboard. You can overlap two small pieces to cover the larger frets. That won't hurt a thing. And when I get to the smaller frets, I usually use a razor blade to cut them in, but I don't have one of those handy and I'm too lazy to go look in the bag for it, so scissors will do. And you will find that oftentimes your offcuts will happen to perfectly fit on one of the lower, smaller frets. So now that we got that all taped up, it's time to get out some tools. Now I've always done this with a level with sandpaper stuck on it, and I actually did the fret crowning as well as the polishing, also with sandpaper. This time we're gonna try something new. This is a super special set of fret leveling tools made out of unicorn hooves from StewMac, and it costs $499. Not quite. This is about $8 or $10 from Amazon.com. You get a fret radiusing file with two different profiles, a 4-stage leveling beam, 2 sizes of fret guards, and even an extra set of sandpaper to recover the beam when it wears out. And no, this is not a full-length beam, but I think that if you take your time and you're pretty good with your hands, it'll do just fine. And we're gonna put it to the test. Since I did a gradual multi-radius neck with a homemade sanding block and banged these frets in with the backside of a ball-peen hammer, this is gonna be a motherfucker. But first, we need to mark all the frets, and the reason why will become apparent shortly. Okay, so now it's time to start leveling the frets. You just take the fret leveling bar and start moving it back and forth, up and down the fretboard. And what you want to happen is see that you are taking the marker off of every fret. But I had to flip to the roughest side. I started with the second roughest side because I noticed I had some really low frets and some really high frets. You don't have to flatten the top of every fret, but as long as you start seeing some chrome or some scratches appear on every fret, then you've got it level. Then I went back with the second grit and I ran it for a while to get all those deep scratches out of the very tip top of the frets. This may seem redundant, but it is actually important. You don't want gouges in the top of the frets, and later you'll see why that is. So then it was time to use the number 3 grit, and this is the flat side of the leveling block, and you can really make sure that you're getting a left to right leveling, and also concentrate on any areas where you have lower high frets, and once again remove some of those deep scratches. Now it's also a good idea to turn the neck at some point so that you know that you're not working one side more than the other. And now I'll go with the final grit and really try to smooth the top of the frets off, get them nice and flat and shiny. And as you can see, some of them had to come down quite a bit, and that's one reason that's a good idea to buy the tall fret wire. Then I removed all that nasty tape. This fretboard isn't finished yet, and neither is the back of the neck, and we really don't want to rub a whole lot of black grime into the grain and stain it up. Now it's time to place a fret guard, and we can finally start crowning the frets with the fret crowning file. And what I'm doing is working down one side of the fretboard, trying to get a crown on the half or third of the fret that is away from me. If you notice, I flipped the fret file to make sure I'm using the right radius fret groove. You can feel the difference. The one side won't really cut at all, and the other side it'll start off rough and you'll start feeling it get smoother and smoother as you go. And you want to watch, there's a grain that you've made from sanding up and down the fret, and this fret crowning file, it cuts the shoulders, just the corners, and moves slowly up and up to the top, and it doesn't cut the top of the frets off. You'll see a line start to appear, and you just want to crown until that line goes away. Right as soon as you start kissing that line and it starts disappearing, stop, because now you're cutting the top of the fret and you don't want to undo your fret leveling job. And as you can see, you won't get lost or confused. You can clearly see which ones have been crowned and which ones have not. And obviously, when you get to a certain point, you will have to switch to the smaller fret guard because the large one will no longer fit between the frets. Here, I'm working my way back up the other side of the fretboard, and I'm paying close attention to the middle of the frets to make sure I get those nice and smooth, and then working the edge as well. And it's time to be honest about this fret guard. I've never used one of these before, and I'm kind of glad I haven't. These things suck ass. I try to do things right for YouTube and to show people, but the edge of it's actually trying to cut into the fretboard, defeating the whole purpose of the damn thing. Now, if you can trust yourself not to run this off the side of the fret and cut your fretboard, it does have a groove in it. It's quite easy to use. You can do this a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster. But speaking of fast, I don't want you to think this is fast. It takes a long time. And now, as I was saying before, I'm just trying to use that grain to make a little line and watch and make sure that I'm getting the whole line disappeared. You can see on the other frets I've already done, there's just a little dot on the end of the fret where that line is left. Well, I knew exactly where to stop. And here's a point I forgot to bring up. When you're working your frets, leveling and doing the crowning, make sure that you work extra on like 12th fret and above. They need to be just a little shorter than the rest of them if you can do it, because no matter what note you're hitting on the guitar, those need to be lower than the rest so you get no buzz. I don't really have a problem with that because I like for my action to be higher at the bridge end so I can grab a handful of strings and do lead. But if you want a super low action, like I have on my Telecaster, I have it super low action so it'll spank against the fretboard, you need to make sure that it's kind of, people call it doped towards that end, kind of sloped down toward the bridge. And here's another thing, you might wonder why I'm only using this file away from me. I could do it twice as fast if I moved it back and forth like a saw, right? Well, this is a single bastard file and the teeth only go in one direction. They eat away from you like a hacksaw blade. So when you're moving forward, you're cutting, but when you're moving back, it's just chattering and chewing the fret up. If you've ever watched a watchmaker or a machinist use a file, you'll understand. You just want to push away from you. If you have a double, triple, or quadruple bastard file, like a chainsaw file, you can use that back and forth and it doesn't matter. It'll eat in both directions. Now that the frets are crowned, I'm going to take a piece of Scotch-Brite. Now this is just a 4-pack for $1 Dollar Tree Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to clean up the fretboard real good, get it back down to bare wood, and kind of roll the edges so it feels real good in your hands. Then I'll take a foam Surform block. It started off maybe as a 600 grit, but now it's maybe like 800 or 1000, and I'm going to work up and down the end of the frets. And the way that this thing is foaming, it folds over. It'll almost make the end of the frets spherical. Then I ran the Scotch-Brite on the end of the frets just to make them that much more smooth and shiny on the end, as well as removing any grime or fret shavings that has gotten on the side of the fretboard. Now we got it taped back up and it's time to polish frets like a girl. This is a 4-sided nail buffing block for doing manicures and polishing acrylic fretwork. The difference is that this starts at about 1000 grit and goes all the way to basically infinity. The number 4 buffing side is just like a vinyl cotton web bookbinding tape. You can get a 10-pack of these on eBay or Amazon for about $10. Not too much to say about this part except for, start with 1, go to 4, and really dig in on it. Do it about 4 times as much as you think you need to. Let's speed it up. You can watch this thing turn into a mirror while we listen to some old school Clementine jams. And after all 4 stages, you can expect these kind of results. I have to say, thumbs up on the cheap file and the Amazon leveling beam. I never used those before. They're fantastic. I can totally recommend them, and I mean, look at these results with the buffing block for nails. After the tape is removed and I took the black off the edge of the fretboard again with the Scotch-Brite, I have to say, this is maybe the best frets that I've ever seen. You definitely won't find anything this nice at the music store. This may be a common occurrence in the $2,000 to $5,000 custom guitar crowd, but I don't have much in common with those people, and I did this with a tool that cost 50 cents. Well guys, that just about does it for this video. If you found this entertaining or educational in any way, please like and maybe subscribe. There's still a few videos to do in this guitar build series, and I think I got a good bit of ideas from the viewers on pickup experiments for the near future. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for your time. I'm Clementine, you're watching Heavy Metal ATC. Till next time!